You're not seeing my shoe, are you? Wasn't prepared for this. Tony just called us 30 minutes ago.
Kurt, don't lean in at all, please. Don't lean in.
Don't brag.
I wasn't.
Don't do anything.
I'm not moving. I'm not going to move. I'll just act relaxed.
What exactly do you want?
Was a lot of this?
Asking Kurt that you do like a little setup, like an introduction that you're sitting here with George Harrison.
Stand by, Kurt. 4, 3, 2.
Hi, I'm sitting here with George Harrison, or Nelson Wilbury, I suppose, as you'll be better known soon. George, explain to us the genesis of the Wilburys, if you could.
It's one of those things that I think had you tried to plan it, it would never have happened. It just happened by its own accord.
Like one night, you guys were just
It
all
was
sitting around.
actually April the 4th this year. I was asked by my record company to give them an extra song to put on a 12-inch extended single for Germany and Great Britain, which I didn't have any extra tunes recorded at the time, so I just thought, well, I'll go in tomorrow, go in a studio or something, and I just write one and do it then. It's only a C-side, like a... So, they want this extra song, so I was having dinner with Jeff Lynne. He was having dinner with Roy Orbison, and I said to Jeff, do you feel like coming along? And he said, sure. Roy Orbison said, well, if you do something, give me a call. I went around to Tom Petty's house to pick up my guitar, which was at his house. And he said, oh, I was wondering what I was going to do tomorrow. And in the meantime, we were, with such short notice, I didn't know of any studio I could find that quickly.
Yeah.
So I called Bob, and he said, sure, come on over. He's just got a little tape machine in his garage. So we went over, and I just made part of the tune up that morning. We went to his house. Jeff and I sat in the garden, finished the tune off. I went in, put it down, wrote the lyrics all together, and mixed it. We did it all, it was all written and done in one day.
How do you write the lyrics all together with like 5 guys in the room? Does that present any difficulties?
It was 5 guys in the garden, actually. We were sitting out in the garden. It was really good. I mean, it just happened that, you know, I got a piece of paper and a pencil, and I said, okay, come on. It's all these great writers now, let's have some lyrics. And they were all saying, well, what's it about? What's it called? And I just kept looking around for a clue of what it was called. And I saw this cardboard box behind the garage door, and it said, Handle with Care. I said, it's called Handle with Care. I said, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And then it was easy. Just started, you know, being beat up and battered around, and somebody else said something else, and that was it. It was written and recorded just on April the 5th.
Was this such a great experience that you decided immediately that you should go ahead and go after an album?
No, I took it to the record company and said, well, there's the extra song for the German market. And they said, oh, God, we can't, you know, it's too good to just throw away like that. So they didn't want to use it.
Germans wouldn't be happy to hear about that. You know?
So I just had hold of this song for a couple of weeks, and I thought, well, I can't think of what to do with it. I can't put it out as a single for me. It's not on my album. Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe they'd like to do another 9 tracks. And I asked the other guys, and they said, sure. So we got together and we did it based on the theory that if we could write one tune and record it in one day, then maybe we could write another 9 and record them. So we did that. We just got together and we just sat down and we wrote a tune, we put it down on tape, wrote another one, and we did it like that quick. Oh. Then later, Jeff Lynne and myself took the tapes and started overdubbing on it, put bass and drums and various instruments on it, but basically it was all written and done instantly.
Is there any common sound to all this stuff, or just certain people come to the fore on certain tracks and others?
Yeah, there's tunes that Bob had the most influence on. It sounds like him, and there's a song which we wrote specifically for Roy, which is very much like an old kind of Roy Orbison song. but it's a good, the album, it's not like we tried to set out to do something that wasn't like going and buying an album of mine or ELO or Tom Petty, Bob Dylan or Roy Orbison. We tried to combine everything, and it's worked very well.
What is this going to be, could you describe this music to someone who hasn't heard it, myself?
Well, I think it's basically it's very up music. It's very, very up. You know, that is to say, it's danceable, if you like to dance. But, yeah, it's fun. It's just really good, fun music. It says some funny things, and the sound of it, because we all basically tend to dislike computers, and so it's very wooden. I mean, it's the first band that I can think of that's got 5 rhythm guitar players.
But Jeff, too, I imagine you'd be adding something in it.
Yeah, we've added touches here and there, but we've tried to keep it, you know, more or less like it was as we wrote it and did it. It's polished off a bit, but not too much.
Is there some story behind the name the Wilburys that you could perhaps let us in on?
That was last year when Jeff Lynne and myself were doing Cloud 9. I don't know, we probably had too many drinks. We were just talking about something, and this came out, the Trembling Wilburys, suddenly.
Trembling Wilburys?
Yeah. And then it turned into the Traveling Wilburys, and that was it. It was forgotten about, really. And when we recorded this song, you know, I just said to Jeff, this is it. This is the Traveling Wilburys.
And
you know, it's underplayed. You know, it's like it would be too easy to make a big deal out of, you know, all these superstars making a record together. Yeah. And I think the main thing is there's very little sense of humor in the label industry these days. You know, everybody's deadly serious. And I think part of it is that it was just done for fun, and it worked out like that.
Was it difficult to get all these guys back together to do a video, particularly Bob, I can imagine?
Pretty difficult. Not too bad, not too bad. But like everybody has got their own lives to lead, and what I was trying to do is just, with the minimum amount of time, to get all these things put together.
There was some talk a couple months ago about the band would actually maybe get together in some forum with some players and be a shifting aggregation that might tour. Is that possible?
Who knows? At this point in time, I think it's a miracle to have made the album with everybody involved. That is to say, it wasn't done where people phone in their parts. We were all there together, and we all did it together. And the same with the video. Now, we just put the record out and see what happens, and after that, who knows? You know, maybe we'll all just go back to being whoever we were before the Wilburys, and you know, maybe we'll do something else. That we just have to wait and see.
Did Dave Stewart have any crucial part in this? I noticed he has an oblique
Not
reference on the
really.
liner notes.
No, Dave. I just happened to be staying in Dave's house, and that's where all the songs were conceived in. Well, the 9 that followed. That's why he gets the credit.
So you're going to try and take some time off after this? I mean, were you expecting this project to develop into what it's become, like this enormous thing? Were you on your way to doing something else when you started it, I think is what I was...
Yeah, what I was going to do was have a rest, because I just made Cloud 9, which I came out of doing the soundtrack to a movie, then I went straight into Cloud 9. After that, I did a lot of promotion and traveling. We've got a few movies being made with this company, Handmade Films. So I was very busy, and if it hadn't been for this 3rd track they wanted as the C-side, then I would have just been resting this year, or at least, you know, backpedaling a little bit. But it's... So after this, I suppose I'll just take a rest, see what happens with the record.
Unless something else comes up, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I'll try to avoid everything else.
Does Handmade have anything coming up that we should be prepared for?
Yes, I think so. We've got an amazing film that's just being made in England. The same writer and director who did a film called Whitnail and I. It's also the same actor, Richard E. Grant. It's a film called How to Get Ahead in Advertising, which is a very lunatic kind of film about a guy who's an ad agent, and he's having trouble coming up with a campaign for a pimple lotion, and then he grows a boil on his neck, and the boil starts talking to him, and it's pretty weird, but it's a brilliant little film. And there's another film which is directed by a director who did Wish You Were Here, and he's just done a movie for Handmade Films called Checking Out, which should be out by next February.
He's the same man that did the video.
Yeah, he just did the video.
Is there a storyline in the video you could tell us about, or how did the idea come up?
The story to the video is that there's these 5 guys singing a song around a microphone. And I don't think you need much more of a story than that.
How true.
Each person in it has their own story.
I wanted to ask you something. We're doing at the time we got this call that you were coming over, and we're doing this thing, and you'd been telling us about the Redlands bust that you were at. Would you like to talk about that at all? You were apparently there.
It's a long time ago now.
I know, but
yeah, I think the story, how I heard it, was that there's a newspaper in England called the News of the World, and they printed a story about, it was really supposed to be Brian Jones, but they made a mistake and said it was Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
So Mick sued the newspaper, so the newspaper decided that they weren't going to be sued, they were going to get him, or all the Rolling Stones or whatever. So they set up with the local police to bust his house, and that night I happened to be there. And I was there very late, 3 or 4 in the morning. And then when I left, they were all busted and put in jail.
Wow.
And that was, in the newspaper, it said another internationally famous pop star escaped moments before the net closed in, which just goes to show they weren't really ready to bust a Beatle at that point in time. They worked their way up from Donovan up through the Rolling Stones, and they waited to get the Beatles later. Incidentally, the guy who did the busts in England in those times was later jailed for about 8 years for planting dope on people.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What was his name?
It's Pilcher.
Pilcher. You may exhume his name and put him in this.
Yeah.
Did you ever get together and play with Keith in those days, or now? I mean, do you still see him at all?
I haven't seen Keith for years. He's lived, I don't know, I presume in Jamaica and New York. I haven't seen him for a long time.
Were you a fan of his playing? Or?
Yeah, I like Keith a lot. We, occasionally send T-shirts to each other.
Are you going out to see Bob since you've been here on any of these shows you do?
Well, I only just got here last night, but I'm hoping to see one of these shows.
Might you
Mind you, by the time this comes on, it will be all over.
Well, we'll have updates later. Might you get up on stage and play? Or?
I don't think so. There's nothing much, of Bob's material that I could play on, really.